Hi guys, welcome to the video. So, what makes a great athlete? And what I mean by a great athlete is an athlete that we remember through the generations. It's not just the athletes we remember now, but the athletes we remember from yesteryear and from generations before that. What makes us remember those athletes as great athletes? And there's different things that we can add in, different ingredients for that great athlete that makes a great athlete that we have to put in and consider. Number one, and this might change for you, but number one, there has to be the potential and the talent in there. An athlete that we remember has the raw materials to perform at the high level. So a lot of the rubbish coming out from athletes there is that I got here mostly because I worked hard, 90% working hard and 10% talent, which is rubbish. You need to have the talent and the raw materials there to be a truly great athlete. It just has to be there. It's the rules of life. So for number one, that raw material have to be there. Number two, there has to be consistency over a period of time of winning consistently. And there has to be, so over a period of years, consistently at a high level, winning again and again and again. So if we're talking about sprinters and athletes, we're talking about multiple Olympic gold medals, multiple world championship medals. So over a period of time. But there's a third thing. Now you may be able to remember more, but there's a third thing that we have to consider that makes an athlete great. And this is, it's a theme that runs through that why we remember great athletes is adversity. When that talent is gone, when they cannot rely on that talent, they cannot rely on the previous experience, when somebody comes up that's just better than them, but that athlete still comes through to win. That is truly great. And I'm going to come to an athlete inside our own sport in a minute, but I want to talk about one of the great examples is Muhammed Ali. There's two kind of memories that people remember of Ali. That's 1964 fight with Sonny Liston, where those memories of him standing up taunting Sonny Liston as Liston's on the floor. That exuberant young youth, that talent, he was just a great fighter at that time. He's unbeatable. He came out and just took Sonny Liston apart. So that was his talent there, his greatness there. But 10 years later, it showed his adversity, his how he overcame adversity. Because just think about, why do we remember Muhammad Ali? It's not just for his boxing. It's not because he's the greatest boxer of all time. Some people say so, but statistically, no, he's not. He lost more fights than a lot of other fighters. A lot of other fighters were statistically better than him. So we remember Ali as probably the most celebrated boxer because of his adversity. He came back from adversity. He was banned from boxing because he wouldn't go to Vietnam. He came back, I think a couple of years before that, in about 1969, 70, I think. I'm not too sure, don't count me on that. But that fight in 1974, was it? Against George Foreman. That was adversity. He should never have won that fight. And George Foreman, up until that point, was almost unbeatable. He had knocked every other opponent out of the ring. He knocked Frazier out, and Frazier, I think recently, at that time, I think years before that, had just beaten Ali, and Frazier got knocked out by Foreman, got knocked out of the ring by Foreman, I think. So Foreman at that time was a rising talent. He was like Ali in 10 years previously. He's a rising talent, almost unbeatable. But one thing, Ali came through, and everybody thought Ali was the complete underdog. No one gave him a chance. No one gave him a chance in that rumble in the jungle. And he came through, and through the rope-a-dope, he came through and won against George Foreman. That is a great athlete. When talent escapes you, you mentally don't give up. You're there. You tell yourself, I'm going to win this fight. I'm not going to allow doubt or lack of self-confidence come through. And he came through, and through kind of just tactical nous, through rope-a-dope, he wore Foreman down and just knocked him out. That is a great athlete, just being intelligent, boxing intelligence. So that's an idea of greatness. Why do we remember Ali? Because of adversity. And the other thing that we can come to is, we'll come back to a sprinter. Who's the most celebrated sprinter we know? It's Usain Bolt. And one of the greatest things we can basically, his pathway was fairly similar to Ali's, although he didn't obviously come through the adversity of, being banned from boxing and through other cultural stuff that Ali had to go through. Obviously, Bolt didn't have to go through that. But in his career, in terms of actually performance, you can see how it ebbed and flowed like Ali. He came on the scene he hit the heights of fame in 2008 when he actually stormed and won the gold medal so easily. I mean, he jogged over the line. At half the race, he was just jogging with his shoelaces undone. And he just came through. He ran 9.67, I think, that day. He could have run 9.4, in the 9.4s at least, that day. No problem at all. That was the height. And he won consistently right through those years. I think he's won the most gold medals, supreme amount of gold medals and world championship medals. But the one thing we forget that we shouldn't remember is when his talent escaped him, when he was no way the athlete that he was, and he should never have won, but he did. And that was the 2015 World Championships. Basically leading up to that race, I think that he'd been injury ravaged all season. His times had not been great throughout the season. I think he'd been in the 9.9s throughout the season, but I don't know if he actually broke 10 seconds throughout that season. Whereas there was Justin Gatlin, who was running far quicker. And throughout that championships, I think it was in Beijing, but throughout those championships in Beijing, Gatlin was just quicker. Throughout, as we went through the heats, he was running, as I remember, he was in the 9.8s. He might have even hit the 9.7s. I can't be sure, but he was far quicker than Bolt. Bolt in that Beijing championships, I think he was stumbling out the blocks, as I remember, in the semi-finals or one of the heats. He was stumbling out the blocks. Was he breaking 10 seconds? I'm not entirely sure. He might have broken 10 seconds and gone 9.96 or something like that. But he was so slower than Gatlin throughout those heats. So, and basically stumbled out the blocks at one point. So leading up to that final, in the 100-meter final that year, he was in no good shape. And Gatlin was far quicker and was the favourite to win that. By all accounts, looking at the evidence, Bolt should never have won that race. Bolt was just slower. It exhibited slower speed than Gatlin. And through hope, I mean, just because of the drugs aspect from Gatlin, a lot of people were hoping that Bolt would win just to kind of save athletics, as it were. But it was all hope. There was no confidence there. The only person that was confident of that time was Bolt, and his greatness came through there because he didn't actually allow himself to let outside factors, the evidence, put doubt in his mind. He had a focus in that final to win that race. And even at the start of that race, he would have gone through that, I'm not going to lose this, I'm going to win this. Even that strength of character, even when the outside factors are not there, even when you shouldn't have won it, everybody else is doubting it a little bit and hoping that he wins, but Gatlin was quicker, far quicker. And we're just hoping that he comes through, but he had to be different. He had to be solidly confident in himself that he was going to win and not let doubt take over from him. If he let doubt take over from him, he would have lost that race, no problem. So his strength of character on that start line was massive, and he came through and he won it. But you can see actually in the whole race, Gatlin was ahead of him going through it, and he should have won it, but he tightened up because he wanted the victory so much. He tightened up at the end. When someone wants something so much, they will tighten, they'll overstress themselves, they'll overwork themselves. Bolt was far more confident and far more relaxed and far more patient. And when Gatlin started to tighten and want it to more, Bolt's confidence came through, and he knew that he could overtake him at the end, and he did. Just at the end, he got Gatlin at the end. Bolt should never have won that final, and what made him great was the fact that he shouldn't have won it, but he still won. Adversity. And that's why we remember these great athletes. I don't know why. I mean, it's underscored this. I mean, it's not really remembered the 2015 World Championships, purely probably because it's World Championships and it's not Olympics. That might have the difference, but that victory showed, for me personally, Usain Bolt's great greatness is through adversity, through when he couldn't rely on his talent, when someone's just plainly quicker than him coming into that final, and he still comes through and wins. That's true great. That's what makes a great athlete. The talent, the consistently over a period of time, and that adversity when they shouldn't win, but they still do. And this is one thing that you can take from that. There's a few things you can take from these really great athletes is, don't go for the training hard rubbish. I mean, Bolt didn't train hard. He hated training, okay? What made him great was his personality and his confidence and his talent. That's what made him what he is. That's why we remember him. So it's not so much training hard. You need consistent training, but when it's highly likely you won't be the Bolt. You won't have the speed of Bolt. You won't win races as easily as Bolt, especially not at the high level. So this is what we can learn from those great athletes is adversity, is when you've got an athlete right beside you that's quicker than you. And you can just block out all the doubt and run to your capacity. And just because that athlete may be quicker than you, doesn't mean that you can't come through and win against them. They might have all the talent, but they might be hampering themselves so much. And if you keep yourself and train yourself to bring relaxation and get yourself into a flow state, you can surprise yourself with your results. If you're a kind of an athlete of potential wise and talent wise, you're in the mix, in the group of athletes, you haven't got the luxury of being a supremely talented athlete. You haven't the luxury of winning races consistently, such as Bolt did, and a lot of athletes are to win races easily. And for those athletes, it's easy for them if they've got the talent, because then they can put relaxation in it and get quicker. But if you're amongst a group of talent, you have to go deeper with yourself and do more growth inside yourself, so you don't hamper yourself, so you can beat those lot. Just because you've got an athlete that's quicker than you doesn't mean you can't beat that athlete. And if you bring in that relaxation and stop hampering yourself with self-doubt and lack of self-confidence, then you can really surprise yourself with your performances. You can get quicker and get times you can really, that will surprise you. And not only that, you might beat those more talented athletes. So that's one thing you can actually take from those great athletes, is that adversity level. So hopefully that video gave you a little bit of complexity about what, and give you that interesting discussion about what makes a great athlete. If you've got, by the way, if you've got ideas about great athletes that I haven't mentioned, other aspects, then put them below in the comments section. What do you think makes a great athlete? What do you remember about the great athletes? But mainly use how they got over adversity to stay at the top, to beat more talented athletes. Use that. Don't hamper yourself. That's the one thing. Don't hamper yourself with self-doubt. Put in place those things, relaxation, put in my kind of techniques, other videos in place, put in my techniques, put them in place, learn them, practice them, and then you can surprise yourself with your own performances. So hopefully that video was helpful. Please like, please share, and I'll see you in the next video.